Today you're going to be doing your very first nonfiction exploration assignment. And in order to do this assignment, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need your manila folder, the one that I gave you in the beginning of the year that has all the papers, the very important papers clipped together. Second thing you're going to need, a pair of scissors. The third thing you're going to need is a writing utensil, not a marker, but a pen or a pencil. But if you're the person who kind of, needs to erase things, if they make a mistake, then you should probably have a pencil. And the last thing is either tape or glue. So after you have all of those materials, and if you don't have those materials right now, you should pause the video so that you can get them. And one more thing, sorry. You also need your language magazine right here, language. And I gave this to you as well in your brown paper bag. So let's go over this again. Language magazine, tape or glue stick, writing utensil, scissors, and your manila folder. And after you have all that stuff together, then join me again. Come back and join me. So now I'm assuming that you've gotten all these materials. Inside of your manila folder, you're going to unclip all of this information, and the following pages are what you need. Everything's like all over the place right now. Hold on, let me move my tape. And let me move my scissors. Inside of your manila folder is a stapled pieces of paper stapled together. There are 3 of these. You just need one. So just rip that off. And now you just have one of these. And you're also going to need to get a piece of cardstock, that thicker piece of paper, that plain piece of card. And you should have 3 of these as well. All right, the next thing you should do, after you have this and after you have this, you should also finally locate the nonfiction exploration rubric, which is right here. That's also in that manila folder. Okay, after you have all of those items, I need you to get your scissors. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut not the dotted lines. You're not going to cut the dotted lines. You're going to cut the solid lines. Or cut on the solid lines. Don't cut until I tell you cut though. Just watch me first. So now you have this nice little chart, this nice little table. And see where these dotted lines are? Okay. So ignore those dotted lines. What you want to do again is cut on the solid lines, like so. And you're going to stop right when you get to the dotted lines. And then you're going to keep on cutting. Voila. There you go. See? Now you're going to get this cardstock and you're going to tape or glue that center row, or column I should say, onto the center of your cardstock. So I put the tape over here. And I'm going to get the tape and I'm going to tape it to the top here. And then I'm also going to tape it right there. So now, and you can put the glue right here, or you can tape it there. But now you have your tabs and your little chart or table attached to the cardstock. Okay, so the next part is you get to look at this amazing, awesome, interesting, factual magazine called Language. And you're going to read this magazine. You're not just going to skim it. You're going to read it. And whenever you find something that's super, super interesting, super, super fascinating, the kind of fact that you want to tell your parents about, the kind of fact that you want to impress your grandparents with, the kind of fact that you think might be a Jeopardy or Final Jeopardy question or a trivia question, you are going to make note of it. And I'll show you how in a little bit. So say you're reading. I'm on page 2, by the way. Oh my gosh. There are 6,703 living languages? Really? I didn't know that. I mean, I know there's Spanish and French and German and Russian. And I know there's a lot of languages, but I didn't know there were 6,703 living languages. I'm going to continue to read. Continue to read. Oh my gosh. And some are dying out. By the time I finish reading this, some of the languages may die out with their last native speakers. It's so sad to think that there are languages right now that maybe are spoken by only 4 or 5 people, and then once those 4 or 5 people die, the language goes extinct. So the fact that I thought that was interesting is going to prompt me to write a question on the outside here, and then the answer on the inside. And the rubric tells you to do all of this. The rubric says that you need to have 8 questions and 8 answers, and correct capitalization and correct punctuation, all this stuff. We'll go over it. But because I think this fact is so interesting, I'm going to write with my utensil. I already did this ahead of time. How many languages exist? Do you see how I wrote how many languages exist? And then I wrote page 2. And do you notice how the question mark is there? Because it's a question. And do you notice how I capitalized the H? Because it's the beginning of a statement, because it's the beginning of a sentence. And then when I put the tab back, I have the answer. Scholars estimate there are 6,703 living languages. Complete sentence, correct capitalization, correct punctuation, and the page number. And by the way, if you look at your rubric, which is basically the ticket to earning a great score, if you look at your rubric, it tells you 8 questions, 8 answers, and complete sentences. It tells you correct capitalization in question. It tells you correct punctuation in question. It tells you correct spelling in question. It asks for correct capitalization in answer, punctuation in answer, spelling in answer, that you have the page number where the answer can be found, and your name and title on the front. And by the way, if you look closely, I have my name, and I also have the title of the magazine, language. But in the past, some people like to decorate and make write language right here in a really fun, fancy font. So you can make it your own. All right, I'm going to keep on reading this magazine. And again, when you find something really, really interesting, cool trivia information, that's when you're like, bingo, ding, 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 that's what I want to write down on this chart. You don't want to write something down that you already know the answer to. You don't want to write something down that you think really is kind of boring and not very exciting at all. Did you know, see, this is where, I already knew this because I've taught this before, but I'm just acting. Did you know there was a theory called the poo-poo theory and the la-la theory? And look, the yo-hee-ho, that sounds like, I don't know, one of the 7 dwarfs. But the yo-hee-ho theory, did you know that? And did you know there was a bow-wow theory and a ding-dong theory? Ding-dong, bow-wow, yo-hee-ho, poo-poo, and la-la theory. So if you think, that's kind of funny, that's kind of interesting, I want to learn about these theories, and then you do learn about these theories, and then you realize, I want to remember these theories, then that would be something else that you would write down. So I wrote here, what is the poo-poo theory? Page 5. And if you want to know what the poo-poo theory is too, then you need to read this magazine. But then you write the answer behind the question. By the time you finish this magazine, you should have 8 really interesting, good questions and 8 answers. The questions are pulled right from this magazine. The answers are pulled right from this magazine. If you don't know how to spell language, look at the magazine. If you don't know how to spell anagrams, well, it's on page 16. Any word on this sheet should not be misspelled because you have a magazine to use in order to correct your spelling. Last but not least, and this is the fun part, we're going to have kind of like a little trivia game the next time we get together. And after you guys all complete this, you'll come together during your live class and you'll ask each other questions. So, for example, maybe I'll call on the person in the corner of my camera in the Zoom meeting and say, all right, what is the poo-poo theory? And if that person can answer the question without looking at the magazine, they'll get a point. But if they can't answer the question without the magazine, then they can say, oh, I remember reading about it, but I can't remember answer. What page is it on? And then I'll say page 5. You'll be able to find the answer on page 5. And then they'll get their magazine out, they'll turn to page 5, they'll attempt to find the answer, and most likely they'll find it. And then they will answer the question. And then they can get like a half a point for getting the question right, but with help. And it'll be fun. And then it'll be a great way to review the information we learned. And it'll also be just interactive. And then maybe at night, at the dinner table, you can impress your parents or your siblings with a really, really cool, interesting fact about language and how language evolved. All right? So if you have questions about this particular assignment, or if you are not sure if you're doing it correctly, number 1, watch the video again, the one that I just created for you, my instructional video. And number 2, look at the rubric, read the rubric. And then if you still have a question, then I guess you should email me. All right, have fun.